I dare not call it a tape recorder because it gets depressed and shuts down. So, so Joe, if you wouldn't mind giving me your full name and your title, please.
Sure. I'm Joe Knapp, and I'm the president, the chairman of the Board of Trustees of the school district.
Okay. Now, Joe, we found out Friday, kind of a surprise announcement to a lot of folks that Dr. Apostle, who had been the superintendent for 7 years, is going to be stepping down to take a similar job in Washington State. And inquiring into what the next step is for the school district as to getting a new superintendent, you were the man to talk to. So what can you tell me about the process?
Well, it's a great question, and as of right now, it's pretty straightforward how the process will go, which is that in April, at our April 14th regular board meeting, we will have a major agenda item of exactly this. What's the succession plan? And there are multiple options available to us. And that actual decision will probably be forthcoming from the board on April 14th. And I mean, the idea being that do we move directly to a formal, complete process and look for a permanent replacement? Do we look for a temporary interim position, which will then allow us a more not relaxed is the right word, but a more diligent search? Bottom line is that on April 14th, we as a board will spend a goodly amount of time figuring out exactly how we want to proceed. And so that's, I think, going to be the key. So people who really want to be in the know should pay attention to the results of the April 14th meeting, because that will be when the actual process will be decided.
I know that one of the chief questions that the press brought up at Dr. Apostle's press conference was with the upcoming mill levy and the fact that he was in many ways a guiding force behind that. Now he will not be there. And how the board might be handling that particular wrinkle in the process, which might lean toward getting somebody who is familiar with folks to continue to ramrod that particular bond issue through so that it gets passed.
Yeah. Well, think about it, and I mentioned this to folks from the Missoulian earlier today. Where I would put this from a perspective standpoint is that this bond issue has been in play now for 2.5 years. We've been working on this for quite some time. All of the process, all of the outline of how we're going to proceed has pretty much been set to the point where we've pretty much completed, and we're very close. In fact, this week we should be able to settle upon, as close as possible, a financial number as to what the bond will be. And by early April, we'll actually decide on bond language. And once that bond language is set, then the actual process as far as the public relations campaign to get the community to back the bond issue goes to the Citizen Advisory Board. It's really out of all of our hands at that point. And so, while I understand that Dr. Apostle has been kind of the point person in many ways for this whole process, the process is completely laid out. The game plan is set as to how we're going to proceed. The face of it will look different, but the actual game plan is completely set.
And I remember what he did. I remember what he did say at the press conference, and if I can quote him, I believe he said, "I've come as far as I can come in the process." And so I think a lot of that has to do with the bond issue as well, right?
Correct, and because if you really look at it, his work is done. In that, not only have we gone through the identification of the district needs, we've with Nick Salmon and help from the folks at CTA, we've got all of the actual projects pretty well identified. We now have a dollar number for both the elementary bond issue and the separate high school bond issue fairly close to completion, and we've identified the advisory board, the Citizenry Advisory Board, and the advertising group that will actually do the campaign. So realistically, all of that work is completely done. And so it's, again, I think there's perception and then there's reality. The perception will be that Dr. Apostle will be leaving and that impacts the process. It does from a perception standpoint. From an actual process standpoint, though, it's done. We have everything. The groundwork is laid, and we just need to complete the game plan, and that's what we'll do with the bond issue. So good, thanks to Dr. Apostle and the work of a huge number of people in the community we are where we are with this bond issue, and we now just have to complete the last couple of final steps, which lies really at the board level with setting the dollar figure and setting the wording. And then the second part of that is move in the right direction with the advertising group and the Citizens Advisory Group to actually get the community the information in front of the community so they can make a wise, conscious decision in November. That's all set. That's pretty much set.
Okay. Well, Joe, at what point will you be able to release to us and to the public what the exact numbers are, and how would we be able to acquire that?
Okay, tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, there is a meeting of the board to come darn close to the final number. And if the actual number is not decided on tomorrow night by the board, it will certainly between tomorrow night and the April 14th school board regular session. So expect within the next 2 to 2.5 weeks an actual final tab on where this is going to go. Now, let me preface this because while we will set a number, there are a couple of other factors that we have no control over that will, in the long run, impact the actual final number. One is that the legislature will, in the next few weeks, be deciding whether or not we can move our bonding, the actual dollar figure bonding capacity number up. In other words, right now we have a fixed bonding capacity. We can only pass bonds up to a certain level, both in the elementary and in the high school district, and that's based upon some state law. That law is being reappraised by the legislature and may be moved higher. In other words, we may be able to go to the citizens for an even higher number, depending upon what happens at the legislative. So issue number one is the legislature may adjust our bonding capacity upward between now and the end of the legislative session. That may impact slightly some of the bonding issues, in particular in the elementary bond number. Secondly, what happens at the legislature with allowing Hellgate Elementary to potentially put in a high school also may impact the bond as well. So that's out of our control as well. So what is under our control is setting a tentative number within the next couple of weeks for both the elementary and high school levies, but both of those decisions may well, even after they're made, be subsequently impacted by what happens at the legislature. So it's not completely under our control yet.